Hello and welcome. I am Siddharth Zarabi and with me my colleague Rajdeep Sardesai. We've been having a lot of conversations here at Davos on AI, but the one that we're about to have is with one of the finest minds in this space, James Manyika, the Senior Vice President of Google Alphabet. Welcome to India Today, to Business Today. Thank you very much for your time. You are someone who's right at the top of the AI ecosystem. And given your expertise and wide-ranging work, I wanted to begin by asking you about, according to you, the single largest and most fundamental shift that is happening in human society on account of the advent of AI as we all know it.
Well, first of all, thank you, Siddharth, for having me. It's a pleasure to speak with both of you. And I'm actually looking forward to being in India in a few weeks' time, by the way, so very much looking forward to that. This is such an exciting moment. I mean, I never imagined we would be here. I mean, I did my PhD in AI 30 years ago, and we never imagined the kind of progress we're seeing today. I think the reason this is so fundamentally transformational is because this is one of those rare technologies that has two features to it. It's what economists call a general purpose technology, which means every part of any activity across humanity will be using this technology, whether it's individuals, companies, businesses, governments. It's a general purpose technology. The other part that's exciting is, which is even more rare, is it's an invention for inventing, which is a different characteristic. So you put all those things together. So when I hear people making comparisons to the Industrial Revolution, what you should actually do is to combine the Industrial Revolution with the Enlightenment, and combine the power of the science and the breakthrough innovations and the radical shifts that occurred with the Enlightenment. We should think about this as both a general purpose technology and an invention for inventing. That's what's so amazing about this technology.
James, that sounds like compressing centuries of development, progress, innovation into one moment. Am I correct in sort of?
Oh, you're absolutely correct. I mean, there's a real example of this in the sense that look at what AlphaFold did. Right, because up until before AlphaFold, thanks to my colleagues got a Nobel Prize for this. Before that, we only understood the structure of about 150,000 proteins because we're doing them one at a time in labs with X-ray crystallography, one at a time. But with AlphaFold, we're able to do all 200 million proteins known to science. Now, imagine if we'd kept going one protein at a time, it would have taken probably a few hundred years to get to all of them. With AlphaFold, we did all of them in one go. So you start to see the same kinds of things happen in material discovery. One of our AI system, Genome, was able to discover something like 2.2 million crystals. And of those, were not known to exist before. And of those, we've been able to establish that something like 300,000 of them are stable enough to be synthesized. So example after example, you're seeing this compression because now you can do scientific discovery at a scale and scope that's breathtaking. And I think that's exciting.
And in a way, it is democratizing science as well. It's making it perhaps accessible to millions or more people than was the case before AI scaled up.
Oh, absolutely. I'll give you a tangible example. I mentioned AlphaFold. So today, when that breakthrough happened, we open sourced and open access to the protein structures that we predicted. And up until now, so far, something like 3.5 million researchers around the world have accessed it. In fact, I think about 180,000 of them are in India. And now what that's done is that researchers who would not otherwise been able to work on certain kinds of problems, either neglected diseases and a variety of things, all around the world can now do that work. So yes, there's an incredible democratizing effect to enable all of humanity to take advantage of this technology and drive breakthrough process. I'm very excited about this, and I think one thing that I get excited is when I see there's so much excitement and innovation in India, and some of the companies and entrepreneurs and researchers we get to see, I think the potential is going to be so exciting.
Is that number that you said, 180,000, if I got that right, does that surprise you from India alone?
No, it doesn't. In fact, I want it to be even bigger than that. What I meant by the reason why the example is interesting is because a lot of the research that would have been required to work on protein structures the old way would have required extraordinary infrastructure, and very few researchers were doing that kind of research, which meant a lot of problems and diseases in local communities in the global south were neglected because the researchers in those countries couldn't do that work. So the fact that now 190, the 3.5 million number that I mentioned of scientists, they come from all 190 countries. I think that's extraordinary. So you now have scientists in all these countries working on problems that they would not have been able to work on before. I think that's incredibly exciting.
The two areas that we've been hearing where AI is going to have this hugely transformative effect, one is healthcare,
yes,
and the other is education. Both of which in a country like India again become critical, given the sheer size of our population, the fact that large numbers of people still are denied quality healthcare and education. Do you believe AI will be able to bridge those inequalities in a way that perhaps was not imaginable, again, pre-AI? Or is that a dream that's being sold?
It's a very ambitious dream. The good news is that it's actually being tackled and addressed. I'll give a few examples. So in the area of healthcare, one of the key issues in many parts of the world is the ability to do diagnosis of a whole range of things. So one of the breakthroughs that we had a few years ago is what's called diabetic retinopathy, where you're able to take a look at retinal scans and observe and diagnose a whole range of things, from cardiovascular conditions and a whole range of things, just from retinal scans. And we've already so far in India actually done retinal scans with diabetic retinopathy of something like over 600,000 patients. So the question is, how do we scale that? So we're working with partners in India to see, can we get to where we can diagnose millions of people using this technology? Tuberculosis is another. So it turns out that something like 40% of the people in the world who have TB go undiagnosed. And most of them live in the global south, in India, in Africa, and Asia, and other places. And so we're actually able to show that with AI, you can do very accurate TB diagnostics. In fact, we actually did some tests in India and in southern Africa to show that it worked. So those are just examples where all of a sudden you're able to bring real solutions to places that otherwise, either because of skills or capability gaps or infrastructure gaps, we've not been able to provide healthcare to those places. I think that's exciting, and I think that's the exciting potential, that what we can do with these scientific breakthroughs and apply them to areas like healthcare, I think is very, very exciting. Take even agriculture. One of the things we're doing, for example, I think we've partnered with Vaani AI, and we're doing work in agriculture, where you can start to think about how do you use AI to actually build kind of new kinds of plant structures to be able to assist farmers. So being able to bring these kinds of solutions where they're needed the most, I think is one of the most exciting.
And that's scalable. All these models are eminently scalable because of the very nature of AI.
They're extraordinarily scalable. I mean, one of the things I love about the partnership and collaboration work we're doing in India is you're able to actually deploy these things at scale. We worked last year with the Indian Ministry of Agriculture, where and with farmers, because we had just developed this breakthrough ways to predict monsoons. And we actually use our latest model, Neural GCM, to predict monsoons. Actually worked with the ministry along with University of Chicago. And we actually showed that we could actually get monsoon warnings to 38 million farmers in India. That was just the first trial. So now we're actually hoping to be able to do that in many more places.
And that kind of work will have a strong ground level impact, because climate change is impacted even the monsoon cycle of how it pans out. I wanted a quick follow up on the India bit, and the realization that Rajdeep and I have been having in multiple conversations is that while the United States and China lead on certain kinds of development within AI, they're seen as superpowers in some ways, a lot of the application work and the ability to make AI work at scale, that opportunity exists in India across sectors. Just as an example, in the healthcare space, one of the largest hospital chains just told us that it gives them the ability to reach high quality healthcare to rural India, which was not possible. You agree with that?
Oh, I fully agree. I think one of the things that we often forget is that, well, first of all, we're learning that, for example, when you give AI tools to health practitioners, whether it's nurses or doctors, or even care providers of various kinds, it dramatically enhances their ability to provide care and when humans work with this technology, it makes a big difference. Now think about the massive expansion of capacity to deliver health when many more people are using these technologies in places. I think that's extraordinary. But I want to go back to something you said, Sandy, which is, I think the application opportunity is enormous, but I also think that the ability to invest and actually innovate and drive some of the research and innovation is also exciting. I mean, that's the reason why, for example, in our case, you probably saw we made a big investment in India last year, a $15 billion investment, and that's focused on not only helping with the infrastructure and kind of a gigawatt scale data center, but also to be able to do investments in innovations and training and access so that actual research that encourages research to happen in India for the benefit of India and, in fact, quite frankly, the world. So I think both are real opportunities.
Very quick one, and this is to do with R&D. Most developing countries have budgetary constraints on investing in R&D. I wonder whether governments can deploy AI at scale to help overcome the barriers of money with regard to investing in R&D. Can AI help reduce the cost of R&D at a national level?
I think the potential is there. One of the things we're starting to see, think about how AI is enabling research, basic research itself. I mean, a lot of the research we now do ourselves, we're using AI tools to do the research. So imagine researchers being able to do research at a much lower level of cost. People are being able to do drug discovery. There's a very vibrant and I think growing pharmaceutical industry in India. Imagine being able to do drug discovery at much lower cost because you're using these tools to help with drug discovery. I think that's exciting. So when you think about the cost of R&D across both engineering kind of R&D or even manufacturing, R&D in manufacturing, but also in the pharmaceutical industry, this potentially could lower the cost of how to do that. So that's also one of the things that we're pretty excited about.
So what would your message be to state governments in India or indeed to corporates in India who are excited about AI at one level, but not sure just how far to go to embrace it? Because familiarly, AI also gets associated in our part of the world with potential loss of jobs. It's the other running theme through a lot of our conversations. Will AI replace blue collar and indeed in some parts white collar labor? What would you tell them to give them a sense of some sense of comfort that, look, AI is an enabler, it's a disruptor, but it's not necessarily inimical to job creation?
Yeah, I think I'd say two kinds of things. First, I think if you're a company, one of the things that is exciting about the potential of AI is to enable businesses, whether it's small, medium-sized businesses, large companies, to drive innovation and productivity. So I think as companies, and I think the big challenge there is how do companies actually drive adoption to adopt these tools to innovate their businesses? So I think if nothing else, from an innovation, growth, competitiveness point of view, companies should embrace the technology. It's going to help their performance, their innovation, their growth, and also ultimately all of that contributes to economic growth and productivity. So you've got that kind of reason to focus on this. I think with regards to the question of jobs, I think all the research I've done suggests three things will happen, all of them at the same time. Yes, there will be some job declines, but there'll also be some job growth, jobs gained. But the biggest effect, almost all the economic studies show this, is jobs that will change, meaning people are going to work alongside the technology. Their jobs will be different. So for people to embrace this technology to do their jobs in an assistive way, it's going to be the biggest effect. That's what all the studies and work show.
So it's about reskilling in a way.
That's right.
You're going to lead huge amount of reskilling.
I think the reskilling question is going to be the biggest question because think about it, if you have all three things, right? Some jobs are declining, some are growing. So people are going to need skills as they transition from the jobs that are declining to ones that are growing. So that's reskilling. Think about the jobs that I said are going to be changed. Whenever there's job changes, even if the job still exists but it's different, there's going to need reskilling. So in all of these questions about work and jobs, the reskilling question becomes fundamental and fundamentally important. It's actually one of the reasons why even when we partner with others in India, this skilling work is fundamentally important. We try to invest in that, in skilling. And in fact, as part of the investment we made and announced last year, a big part of that is to do with skilling. How do you enable people to have the skills, the essential skills to be able to take advantage of this technology, both to help themselves and help them at work, but also ultimately contribute to leveraging this technology to drive and grow the economy.
James, in the time that we have left with you on this conversation, and we hope to have more in the future, two aspects. One, your work as the co-chair of the UN high-level body on AI, and the fact that India is going to host very soon this very massive AI summit. Explain it to our viewers. Why is this moment significant for that AI summit to be taking place in India?
Well, first of all, I'm very much looking forward to be there. I think the reason it's so important for this to take place in India, and it's actually one of the things that my colleague and CEO Sundar has always said, which is what we don't want the digital divide turning into the AI divide. So having a summit like this in India and being able to actually show that we're all working to make sure this does not become an AI divide, both in terms of access, infrastructure, connectivity, people being able to use these tools, people being skilled, I think is fundamentally important. So I think at this time, having this summit in India, I think is one of the most exciting things for, quite frankly, not just for India, but quite frankly for the world, because there we have a country that's exciting, that's growing with the motivation, and quite frankly, one of the things that was actually always fun when I was co-chairing the UN high-level body was that there's a wide range of attitudes around AI in the world, but I would always enjoy the conversation with Indian colleagues on the panel because they're very optimistic. In fact, the conversations mostly about, okay, how do we fully capitalize on this technology to transform our economies, our education systems, and healthcare, and all of that?
And why do you think that is?
So let's work on that. Let's work on those, right? So I think having a country like India host a summit in a very optimistic but also responsible way, because I think this technology is. We always say, you may have heard Sundar and I and others say that we think it's important to be both bold and responsible. I think both things are important. Bold meaning let's be as unabashedly ambitious about how we apply this technology to transform economies and society, improve lives everywhere. But at the same time, we should be responsible. So both things are not in conflict in our minds. I think we should work on both. I think being able to showcase that in India, I think is one of the most exciting opportunities we have.
In a way, what you're saying is the summit also gives you an opportunity to sort of move from theoretical basis to demonstrable impact on the ground, to, in a sense, reach out to the people of India who, even the skeptics, AI skeptics, and sort of converts them by giving demonstrable impact on the ground.
I think demonstrable impact, making sure this is touching the lives of people and improving their lives, I think is important. It's also one of the reasons, I think I should have mentioned this earlier, we have an extraordinary partnership we're very excited about with the Indian Institute of Science on this Vaani project, which is intended to focus on Indic languages. Because one of the things that we think is important is for people being able to interact with technologies like this in their languages and their cultures, I think it's fundamentally important. That's why the work on language is some of the most important work we think we're doing, and having partners like India to work on languages is very exciting to us.
Okay, as we wrap this conversation, I just want one quick 30-second bite, as we see in TV Parliament. You did a PhD in AI 30 years ago. What prompted you? And more importantly, end by telling us, what do you think the world will look like with AI 30 years down the line?
Well, so it's hard to do that in a soundbite. But first of all, there was nothing original about me doing a PhD 30 years ago. Remember, the term came into being in 1956. So this is already an old field. It just so happens that in the 90s, it was starting to turn and started to make progress. So I just happened to be lucky enough to be doing a PhD at that time. I think the thing to look forward to is that we're seeing such incredible progress. And what you're seeing of AI today is probably the worst AI you'll ever see. It's only going to get better because the innovations, the research, the breakthroughs, we're still so early in this incredibly transformational technology. So I think, in 30 years' time, or even less than that, in 10 years' time, we'll be having very different conversations. One of the privileges that I have in the work that I do is, we have a quantum AI team, and it's one of my teams, and we're, again, that's exciting. So we start to see these fundamental breakthroughs in areas like quantum computing tied with AI. In fact, the team is called Quantum AI. Those are some of the things to look forward to in the future, and I can't wait to see where we're going to end up.
Absolutely, James, and that it's a very, very interesting time, and like you say, it's only just getting started. But we have to end this conversation. I would have loved to carry it forward, but time doesn't respond to AI. James, thank you very much for your time with us today.
Well, thank you so much to both of you. We'll see the conversation in India in a few weeks' time.
Yes, absolutely, and we look forward to that. Remember, that's a big one that's coming up, and we'll all be covering it there. Once again, thank you all for watching.